Hi listeners, welcome to my channel. June 2021 has capacity to be a bend in the road month. It has some very volatile aspects. It has an eclipse where close to 6 planets are parallel or anti-parallel physically in the sky with the karmic nodes. It has the second time replay of innovation and reform through disruption aspect of Saturn Square Uranus transit. It has potential to rock the financial world to the core. It has two outer planets going retrograde, creating immense urgency and strongly stimulating collective minds with some strong effects and efforts of deception and illusion, followed by a month end where unveiling of those deceptions would happen. It has potential to have some very strong physical earth-linked shifts and possibility of environmental anomalies that come with it. It has the last solar eclipse in Gemini with North Node, giving us a playing field to change our mind and plant a new seed in a direction that's more suitable for the future versus living in the past. Pluto physically opposing personal planets this month will show up in struggles, power plays, trying to mass control the population, and a lot of shady political games openly at play, along with power struggle between countries reaching a helm. It would also, in some ways, ask us to power up and stand our ground. A lot of things will be confusing, and we wouldn't know things clearly till we arrive at the second half of the month. One thing is for sure, we would not emerge out of this month looking, thinking, talking, anything like we do entering it. This month bends the road. While we have covered the eclipse in details, as that's the key transit of this month, we are going to do a quick rundown of the key dates and the aspects of this month in this video or podcast to be well prepared for the month ahead. The key dates are mentioned in the description, and if you're watching this on YouTube, they will also flash on your screen. Timestamps are also in description with the dates of the transit, and if you are on YouTube, you could see the video divided into chapters for easy access to different dates in the month. My name is Charu and I am your host on this journey. So let's dig in. Let's start with the first 10 days of the month, which is the run up to the eclipse that's happening on 10th of June. Sun meets North Node at the start of the month, and we are more compelled to follow our path, or we could even receive some cosmic clues in the first 10 days of the month on what that path is. Other personal planets have been here, and we might have got some hints in May, specifically on 10th or 17th of May, on what we are supposed to move forward on. So this could be a build up from May, which is now coming to a final start. We start the month on a more sure footing and ready to walk forward with faith on things that are untested. These are newly opened lands, offering the pioneer in us new opportunities for experience. This is virgin field of consciousness and activity, and we must meet it with faith. On the way to this new chapter of our life, we have some pleasantness on 3rd of June when we find soul's comfort, like feeling right about what we are doing, and also some possible supporters for our cause, some authority figure, an experienced person, or an experience of somebody else helps our thought process and our quest. Even if they don't come to us proactively, it's a good day and week to approach someone of influence or somebody who can give you their experienced inputs or support in moving forward in your new start. But keep in mind, any emotional reactions or actions would be met with equal and opposite control and ego reactions. Taking suggestions is different from giving reign of your life to somebody else. You have to be mindful of that, and any over emotional actions would definitely have much more control issues which will show up around 5th of June. Passions would run high around 5th, as we somehow can smell that what we want is nearby. Everyone can get a bit competitive around that day. When there are things not yet clear, an opportunity of miscommunication is going to be high on 5th of June. We have a lot of physical and emotional strength to get over the complexes right now. Don't waste your breath. Physical act of aggression is possible around 5th, so we have to be a little bit careful with tempers flaring up. High willpower, which can be constructively used instead of facing aggression, and passionate outpourings which can happen around 5th of June. First 10 days of the month, we are in the retrospective. We are sort of going back and maybe analyzing or reviewing something of the past during the first phase of Mercury retrograde. So verbal interactions are best kept to a little bit lower side. We have to focus more on reviewing the details. We will uncover issues linked to relating to others, gaps in our written or verbal work, or contracts which needs patching up, gaps sometimes in our skill set or the social media we are using which needs to be ramped up, gaps in our commercial prospects of work that we are doing, gaps in how we are marketing it, what tools we are using, how we are speaking to people about our skills and our work, as well as how we are speaking to ourselves about our ability to think, create, and verbalize. External and internal words are being reviewed, as is our mind. Sometimes past will physically come in physical form to show us these gaps in the first 10 days or remind us of our own previous, more open and light mind. We will reflect on signals that we have been missing on so far. And this can only happen when we cut out the distraction of over communication and media in the first 10 days especially. Let's come to the 10th of June solar eclipse, which I have covered in detail separately. On 10th of June at 6:52 a.m. Eastern Time, Sun and Moon will come together as a solar eclipse at 19°47' of Gemini along with North Node to plant a new seed. This is happening while Mercury, the ruler of this eclipse and the symbol of our mind, walks on Earth. Our mind is reborn. This could be literally a voila moment for many of us. 10th of June evening or 11th first half, our emotional impulses as well as our mind is being reborn. So some new thought processes can come out in the open on that day. And that helps us moving forward. This is our once in 19-year opportunity of faded initiation of the mind, of communication projects, of commercialization. A new thought form is born, a new movement of the body, of the hands, and a new expression of self is born. I have detailed the solar eclipse separately so you could use it over the next 6 months for this very initiation. Sign-specific themes discussed earlier, I'll leave the link for that in description. It starts around 6:50 mark of the minute in each of the sign-specific video. Let's look at the period immediately after the eclipse, which is 10th of June to 22nd of June. Mercury, our mind, meeting Sun in inferior conjunction on 10th or 11th is still very new. Those ideas, those voila moments, those thought process, those enlightenment that comes to us, they are still very fresh and not fully formed. As I mentioned in the eclipse video as well, sharing them too early with others is not recommended at this time. We enter the gestation period till 22nd of June, during which we move away from the whole introspection period of the first 10 days and letting go of the past to now working for the future, collecting, gathering new resources for the future. Much is revealed during the period between 10th of 22nd of June, which you need to know for the benefit of your new start. We cannot yet finalize and conclude on things as there is much more revelations to be had. This will be a very active period, verbally, in communication, in getting information. Keep your mind open as many new ideas will come during this time to move forward. It will be a very active period in press, in media, as would be most of June. Neptune is going to be very strong throughout this month, apart from specifically 5th of June and 13th of June is when Neptune will be very strong apart from month end. I would be physically careful in the second half of the month as Neptune stands still in terms of my immunity, as well as be careful of sibling issues, liars, and overall confusion while communicating and commuting. Period right after the eclipse of 10th is the time to grow, to gather information, to test new territories, not launch them, but explore new alternatives with yourself. Research, survey, discuss, connect. We allow new potentials to develop versus setting them in stone in this time. Things seeded in Gemini are never set in stone, so whatever you're starting will mutate over time. They will evolve. That's the charm of evergreen, ever young, ever charming, and ever growing Gemini as a archetype. The opportunities will evolve and grow over time. Let the opportunities develop from 10th to 22nd, but work forward, research forward, discuss forward, experiment a little bit. This is the time when we have to look at how to put the show on the road, but don't yet commit to it, don't yet communicate en masse yet, not until after 22nd of June. Trust the process and do not fully mature the ideas at this stage. If you must sign anything, that because life doesn't stop for anyone before 22nd, if you have to sign something, leave a room to edits or provisional clauses. 47 days following the 22nd of June would be the time to test the untried, to take the road on the show, to market the ideas, to forward trust with full creative freedom. The quintessential experimental phase of action for the themes originated during the eclipse. But now there is much more which is happening in this month. On 14th of June, we have the second Saturn Uranus square. This aspect is felt not just this month, a month before and a month after this, but this is the peak of the second aspect. Now this is a transit which we are going to experience throughout this year. It's an all year transit, and we have separately discussed this again in detail. I have done 2 videos on it, both for global events as well as personal transit by sign. Saturn Square Uranus essentially pushes the limit of status quo throughout this month. It will wake us up. It wakes up the collective rebel and freedom seeker in us. New rules are made and the old ones are edited. But because Neptune is so strong this month, confusion will prevail till the end of June and early July on what are the rules and who is the ruler. Who is making those rules? Who is the decision maker ultimately? Especially in United States, China and Russia are deeply impacted as well. This aspect on constructive side helps us manifest creative and inventive ideas into substantial achievements. There are 3 times Saturn and Uranus are squaring each other this year. The first happened on 14th of Feb, so you can note what was of substantial value, like an old mold which was broken for you, because you're looking to essentially evolve a groundbreaking, innovative, inventive idea into a physical form this year using this very rare transit. So when the first aspect happened on 14th of Feb, again, it would have been felt from January itself till mid of March. This is something which is substantial. It is structural. It's like a structural shift in our life. And now, second time when it's happening on 14th of June, we sort of go back and there is some tweaks, some changes in that which need to be done. So what was seeded in the first square around 14th of Feb will come back for review, edits and rehashing now. And this is very structural, very integral part of our life. We have gone deeper into what it is for your specific sign in the 2021 sign specific videos. So do look at that, because this is the theme of 2021. I'm just telling you the phases of how it would happen. It would happen throughout the year, but these are the peak times. So June will be a peak time when like a old structure is broken up and the new rules of the road are written for us to progress forward. At the collective level, it stimulates the human population to repel any restriction and bring down the paradigm. Even we will feel like the restriction just start hurting a little bit more than they did. We want to essentially break out of the old mold. In Uranus Taurus, this shows up in material realities, and we'll see it in the financial market, we'll see it in the stock market volatility, we'll see it in the economical changes. And we'll also see, because Taurus is an earth sign, we'll see that in the structure of the earth fighting back through natural events and shift in earth resources. With Saturn in Aquarius, this comes with mass revolution, protest, space exploration, as well as innovations. But second aspect normally tries to make sense of the wild adjustments, especially the seeds that are planted in February, in January. It tries to make sense of that. In the first aspect, which happened on 14th of Feb, we saw retail investors take Wall Street hostage through their meme investing, and a man called Roaring Kitty testified to Congress. This war from Main Street to Wall Street would intensify and could even upend the stock market. There was a strong belief with the retail investors that they're fighting fair and square against the institutional investors in a market where rules are deemed harsher for the Main Street versus the large institutional investors. This year will show who's the ruler of the financial resources. I have said it before, Uranus and Taurus is weak. It's at its wall. So innovation happens, but it happens through a very rough path. Saturn in Aquarius, on the other hand, is strong. The regulations are swift, and regulations usually win. Though some very disruptive moves will happen on the way to it, and we could see them in June. This is not a financial advice. My personal view is based on astrological aspects. I've done a recent note on astrological views on crypto and financial markets. You can read it or just understand that Saturn is Kronos. Kronos was God. He ate his kids, including Uranus, who was one of his kids. Uranus is innovation, wild and freedom-seeking us. Saturn thought Uranus is his kid essentially will upend his rulership when he's born, along with the rest of the kids. He thought he was blocking him being replaced. He was blocking the future. But by keeping the kids in his stomach, he was actually double hatching his kids. What happened is that they finally did come out, but they came out stronger in a more usable format. Saturn is a stronger planet here, so regulations, restrictions are inevitable. They will be there. But you have to realize that within those rules, within those restrictions, a much more beneficial form of whatever you have been thinking about is going to be produced. We'll see that in the financial world also. All this anarchy, all this fight to decentralize the financial systems and the money, it will hatch into something more useful. So anarchy and quirky ideas that can be made into compliance, technically advanced solutions, environmentally friendly solutions which can service with the structures of the regulator versus breaking the system itself in which they wish to thrive, they would do well. These ideas would be double hatched. We would see that evolution of something wild into a more useful form coming through the second contact over July and June. That's the constructive outcome we should be working for. But this would come with its fight. In the first square, we saw a lot of protests. Indian farmer protest, United States racial unrest, Alexei Navalny jailed in Navalny jailed. My pronunciation is not correct of the Russian name. Myanmar protest we saw, Australia wildfires we saw J&J one-shot vaccine approval. A lot of Groundbreaking changes and innovations also happened, but we saw a lot of protest, imprisonment in Hong Kong. We saw US death tolls from pandemic essentially exceed the death tolls from World War I, World War II, and Vietnam War. That was also the time when WHO team investigation concluded on the origins of the current pandemic, saying that it was unlikely to be Wuhan lab. Trump was impeached and acquitted for the second time. UK's Kent strain was becoming the dominant virulent strain at that time. Second chapter of all of these themes, of the protests, of the fighting, as well as of the innovations, will come in June. This is also a geological aspect. We could see these planets come along with the eclipse, bringing some physical shifts in Earth, which would result in some sort of environmental anomaly, an extreme weather condition, possible volatility, fires and earthquake. Australia wildfires, Himalayan glacier clash destroying dam flooding Uttarakhand in India, major winter storm in Texas, unusual snowfall in Greece and Athens were all observed in the first aspect. But also the innovation like NASA's Perseverance touching down on Mars, first energy island by Denmark, those were also shown in the first aspect. Saturn Square Uranus is forming a fixed T-square with China's chart, involving its Mars with Uranus as apex. And I do expect this aspect to begin a sudden chain of events as the month end full moon falls in the house of secrets and hospitals opposing its Uranus, showing either a sudden information coming to light or a medical emergency linked with China. This would be happening as Neptune, the planet of illusion, lifts the veil end of month, and we see some truths so far hidden in the plain sight, and it has financial and resources impact on China in my view. First week of July, we will have extreme volatile aspects being formed, and they would be driven from the events end of June linked with China. The first case of 𝗏5N8, which is the bird flu transmission to humans, was reported in Russia during the first square that happened in Feb. Since the upcoming eclipse has its shadow on Russia along with this aspect playing out, and Neptune being very strong, lowering the immunity and limits, I would look out for that situation to escalate over 2021. I would be a little bit careful. Thing is that there's so much being talked about COVID. The bird flu transmission discussion is just, there's no discussion about it. But since the aspect is happening second time, that's when I started researching and I saw this. And to start with, I didn't even see it in the news anywhere. So anyways, that's the second Saturn Square Uranus, double hatch your zany, your quirky, your innovative ideas, which might have been seeded in February into their usable commercial formats in this progressive aspect. I think the way we will commercialize our ideas is going to dramatically change in the month of June. That's a very significant change for many of us who are working on their self-made wealth, who are working on our skill set, who are working in going to the second level of growth in our commercialization. Then we have solstice and the season changes. Cancer season will begin on 20th of June. Happy birthday to Cancer Sun and happy new season to all of us. We come to solstice here. There will be a marked change in our sense of initiative after the summer solstice. We will be coming out of the Mercury retrograde. We would also be experiencing the positivity of the season starting, which would give us more drive to initiate what we feel passionate about. We would be more under the influence of emotions, but also driven positively by them to do something that brings love, that brings comfort, that brings our heart warmth. Emotions as the season begins are going to be a little bit high. We'll have all the feels for home, for heart, for family and comfort. We'll cover this in more detail, but Cancer season will begin after 20th of June. This will be followed by Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter will go retrograde on 20th of June at the degree of self-protection. It's like to move forward safely and continuing to grow, we would need to shield our creation from external influences for a while. Jupiter will stay retrograde till 18th of October. Sabian symbols used to show this as a squirrel hiding from the hunters. She's seen not to only store the food for the winter, but she's also hiding it from others. It would almost seem that the idea we are sort of hatching, or we are seeding a new idea and we are getting more clarity, more conviction in it, maybe we need to guard it from social influences. Social influences can cast strong shadows at what we are trying to create. Competition, social aggression, and greed are some of these influences we would need to shield ourselves from. This does have a very ominous symbol for social unrest, where violence is a possibility. And it's possible that some of us are protecting what we're trying to create from the external political unrest and social unrest that the very volatile aspects of second half and the end of June is creating in the world. We are protecting ourselves from the distraction of what's happening in the global events. Or you might be protecting it just from some people who are very competitive, have social aggression, or this pure greed and envy which comes out of your success. It's like on 23rd of June or around, something is given to us. On 23rd of June, when Sun and Jupiter come together, usually an outcome comes out, like a positive result of the work or a news we have been waiting for, an avenue of expansion, and somehow it invites envy. So we need to protect this from social influence. It's a great time. While what's given to us came from social interaction, came from a lot of work, we now do need to protect the very same thing from social influences, from external influences. To the date of the retrograde, to the date of around 20th of June, as the ramp up to 20th of June, as well as a few days following that, till around 23rd, 24th, we'll be very emotionally on a high. This is an optimistic period. But Jupiter is now another social planet going retrograde, which means that we would need to grow what has been given to us without both social benefits and influences. We are looking at all the way till 18th of October, where what is given to us is on us to grow. It is almost like we are detoxing them from social influences. This would very specifically impact, in my view, creative growth and spiritual growth and linked businesses and initiatives. Because essentially Jupiter is now another social planet and it's in Pisces. It's in the very archetype of creativity, spirituality, everything that comes from higher consciousness. Even camera, movies. So it's almost like you have to create that without getting too much bogged down by the social comments on it. If you have been relying on faith on an external person, like a mentor, a senior, a boss, a big brother, or a teacher, we would be compelled to go solo. With Mercury turning reckless yet full of initiative morning star as well, we would want to go solo too. Jupiter retrograde removes social influences and faith or reliance on others for what we are creating. Especially projects that are meant to go live in 2022, it's possible that you get a go ahead of a project, but you need to do it yourself. like you have to self-sponsor it or create it end-to-end yourself. You somehow have to do it without external support. It's like an external support is given, but then told, okay, now you are on your own after this, something like that. Yeah, projects are reformed to be, during this process of you doing it solo, the projects will get changed and shifted as well. Our work will get modified because it will get detoxed from other people's responses, value system, influences. It's almost like it's becoming kosher. Here, projects are reformed to be in line with our value system. So if we have created something to suit others, we sort of come back to reckon with our own moral code here. We will go deeper into all of this in separate videos, which I'll do on these aspects. But no, something would be given or a positive mood comes. But we need to detox what we are creating from social influence and support over the coming months. We'll have to guard it like that squirrel with the nut. Just take the nut and run with it and hide it and keep it and nurture it in your own place, essentially. On 25th of June, we have Neptune, the planet of spirituality, love, creativity, as well as deception. It's going to take a turn to go retrograde as well. This is one by one the social external planets. They're going retrograde. So the external influences are slowly dying off and we sort of have to do things on our own. And Neptune will be retrograde till 1st of December. It's a very subtle influence. Neptune affects more of our psychology. And the intent is to gently dissolve what is not real, showing us certain deceptions and illusions. It could not just be a person, but if there was a fantasy goal or false values we were carrying, which keeps us away from our own truth, we would somehow be made to see it, and it will be very evident towards the end of June. Something will be shown, unveiled, which was in plain sight. And during the retrograde, if you get that feeling, something is wrong. You know, it's like you sometimes have a gut feeling and we ignore that. Don't ignore that around 25th of June. You'll get a gut feeling if something is not kosher. You'll know about it. And you'll be shown the full truth of that person or the event over coming months. Neptune signs are very subtle and internal, but our inner voice is given more strength for this. Illusions will subside for the rest of the year as we would start one by one get a newfound clarity on the things that have happened so far. New reality would start to emerge with this once Neptune is retrograde around 25th of June. Neptune is making a very hard aspect with the United States chart, and I do believe some of the very crucial information will get revealed with this. For us personally, if we have been fooling ourselves since March on something, or not accepting the reality of a situation, especially if it is linked to heart, love, creativity, spirituality, if we've been fooling ourselves in some ways or not accepting, we'll be shown that. We would become more open to alternatives. If we have been sticking to some sort of impossible ideal, we'll sort of become more open instead of waiting for something which may, which is not real. Neptune retrograde is marked by an assembly of slippery, elusive, mysterious, otherworldly people being said goodbye. Because we start to see their reality. We start to see their too good to be true qualities in daylight. It's like a veil is lifted and you suddenly see the person you were seeing before this in a completely different perspective. And there will be certain your own dreams and goals that you'll see differently once Neptune goes retrograde after 25th of June. It's very important for the creators because there might be some creative ideas which you'll start now thinking in a more realistic fashion. It could be ideas related to a movie you're making. It could be related to something creative you're writing, poetry, anything that you're creating out of your heart, out of your love, out of your spirituality. You start looking at them with a more realistic picture. And the idea is not to remove the charm of life. It's more to make the charm into a more permanent thing for you. The whole concept of June is to create some sort of commercial reality out of your dreams. The theme of all of those aspects, if you look at them from a personal perspective, are just that. The rest is just noise which is happening in the political system, in the financial system, in the external parties, half of which we don't know what is true, what is not. Finally, with that, we reach to the month end. We have a full moon at 3°28' of Capricorn on towards the end of the month, and that along with Neptune would show world some things. These are disclosures related to government, related to leaders, related to structures. They will be essentially hiding in plain sight, and now we see them. These two, Neptune retrograde and Capricorn full moon, they're happening around the same time. We have the full moon in Capricorn on 24th of June, which will be in influence for the next 2 weeks. And Neptune retrograde is also 25th of June. So I think the combined impact of both of them is definitely a disclosure. Due to these reveals, what was being said till now, we see the reality of it and become firm on our view that creates volatility towards end of month. And there'll be extreme global volatility as we end June and July begins. We have a fixed T square, and it makes an aspect with China and other countries. We'll see a lot of structural fights essentially. First week of July could bring an act of aggression or an accident to pass, which would be of great significance. I would cover more of that in July. I have covered to some extent in my eclipse video as well. These events would be making essentially the month end very, very volatile. It's a fixed T square like a broken glass. You really cannot piece what it breaks back together. Maybe in our personal capacity, some molds have to be broken, but due to inertia, we have been prolonging it. But once the jig is up, we see things clearly. It's like something needs to be let go and broken off. The Capricorn full moon has a very positive aspect with Jupiter. It forms a beautiful trine with Jupiter, which means that something very substantial will come to pass. But also a secret will be revealed at this time. We do have access to Jupiter in this moment, which means that we can look beyond the global volatility and be that squirrel and work on our nut essentially. Something very substantial is coming to pass, but at the same time there's this volatility and a secret is revealed. The full moon in Capricorn always brings topics of career, authority, countries, leaders, jobs, bosses. They come into focus. Job shifts, boss shifts, changes in title are very much a hallmark of this. A completion, a culmination. The Capricorn full moon at the end of the month is going to make us feel very, very ambitious. And even though the social planets are retrograde, personal planets are not. So that means we have a lot of personal will in all this. A lot is achieved using our own initiative here. And we do not look for a handout. If we seek a new experience, we would take the initiative and create it. This is our eagerness for new experiences, seeking an embodiment. And we're going to find that embodiment with our own initiative. So that's June for you. Phew, that was long. I will try to do another sign-specific mid-month video, and I'll try to do eclipse further. I have already done one of the thematic one, but a deeper dive for the eclipses by sign, so we can understand deeper by sign. But I have to do it at my own pace, which is what I'm trying to do right now. So have patience with me on that, and the content keeps coming in. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next video now. Thank you.